What is God calling us to leave behind? What is God calling us to sacrifice? What is God asking of me at this particular moment in my life? The idea of discernment is integral to the Christian worldview. Because if our religion is true, that means that God isn't just interested in what we have to say. He's intimately involved in our lives and ready and willing to guide us along the right path that leads us to executing His will rather than our own. There's a story that I heard once in a homily when I used to sit where you're sitting. I was a layman once. And I forget where I heard it. I forget what priest gave it, but it was a really good little analogy. This priest, this mystic, had a vision. And in the vision, he saw the cross that he was to bear. And he prayed, and he said, "Lord, that is too much for me." And Jesus appeared and said, "Well, this is very important. You have to bear a cross, but in an extraordinary act of love and kindness, I'll let you choose your own cross." Guy said, "All right, sounds like a good deal." So Jesus starts to walk him along and shows him, "Well, what about this one?" Like a used car salesman. It's got a good, we just put a new sign on this one. This is nice. Look, nah, not that one. That one's not for me. Okay. And they keep going and keeps pointing at all these different crosses, and he keeps saying, "Now, those are do you have a smaller one?" Jesus said, Of course. Walks in. "What about this one?" Little tiny thing. Guy said, "Oh, I can take that one." Jesus said, "Are you sure? Sure you don't want one of those other ones over there?" I said, No. This is the cross for me. I said, "It's interesting that you chose that one. Because that's the cross I've already asked you to bear." Brothers and sisters, often we think of the crosses we bear, the things that we have to sacrifice, the difficult things we have to do in order to maintain our relationship with God as burdens. We often view our relationship with God as merely being combat with sin. We often view our struggles as punishments that God has imposed upon us because of some wrongdoing. God will only ask you to give up good things. He doesn't want your sin. He wants you to get rid of it. He wants you to go to confession. But when it comes to serving Him, when it comes to following Him, you're going to have to bear things that you think are unbearable, that you think are extraordinary, that you think are undoable. Like the man who looks upon all these crosses and is like, "No, I just want a small one." His perspective was all wrong. He didn't understand that it's not a burden, that it's a grace. Whenever I hear this gospel story, my mind always turns to one thing and one thing only: Zebedee. Poor Zebedee. As a priest, I can say, the parents of priests suffer. I'm not going to be rich. I'm not going to be famous. I'm not going to be wealthy. I'm not going to have children. I'm not going to have a wife. And that was hard for my mom to accept. But my mom's suffering is nothing compared to the suffering of that man. He's just in the boat with his sons, fishing. He probably needs their help. He probably can't do this job without them. And in a moment's notice, at the call of some stranger, they're gone. Did he curse Jesus? Did he complain about his sons? Did he throw up his hands and just give up and stop being a fisherman? Or was he able to see the choice of his sons for what it is? The acceptance of the cross. Not the same as Jesus' cross, but a cross nonetheless. I don't know what Zebedee thought. St. Matthew does not tell us. But I know it was hard. I know he probably misunderstood, at least a little bit. I know he probably struggled to understand, why would God take my sons from me? And yet that was God's will. God will always ask you to give up good things. Whenever my mom would complain about my vocation, I always have the same response. She quit complaining about it, by the way. Thank God. But I think it's because I always answered the same way. What if God called me to be a missionary? Because I'd go. I'd go. I don't care. You'd never see me again. Why don't you give thanks that that isn't my path? That I get to be here. That I get to be a priest in Maryland. When we start to view life from that perspective, our mind becomes open to the multifaceted ways that God is working in us and through us and with us. But if we stay laser focused, if we're just thinking like, oh, this is the thing that I got to do. This is the cross that I got to bear. This is the burden that I choose. We'll miss the call. We'll just stay there in the boat with Zebedee and say, nah, God wouldn't ask me to abandon my father. That's crazy. What was Jesus' mother doing at this time? She was alone. Do not be afraid to lay down that which you love, that which you value, that which you hold dear. Because Jesus will always repay you. Not with money, not with glory, not with prestige, not even with success. Andrew died on an X-shaped cross. Peter was crucified upside down. I forget how James died. John lived 30 years on an island in exile. None of that appears good. And yet, it is. If we can start to understand that God, following the way of Christ, is wholly inconvenient, difficult, and costly. 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 Then you and I won't hesitate to leave Zebedee in the boat. And then together, we'll follow Jesus on the way. And if we all did that, this is what church would look like every Sunday.